Welcome. In this video we will be exploring the life of a gladiator during ancient Rome. We will follow the brutal training grounds and the roar of the arena. If you enjoy these videos, please leave a like and or subscribe. Now while begging the story. Close your eyes. Let your body grow heavy against the earth beneath you. Let your shoulders soften. Let your hands rest open at your sides. You are safe. You are still. And tonight, I'm going to tell you the story of a man named Caius. Caius Varro, son of a Thracian shepherd who was taken in chains along the road to Thessalonica when Caius was 9 years old. That boy, barefoot, dark-eyed, with hands already roughened from a life of mountain cold, grew into something the Romans did not expect. He grew into someone who endured. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Let us begin at the only beginning Caius truly remembers. Not the shepherd's hut. Not his mother's voice. Those things belong to another life and another boy. His real beginning is the smell of sand and iron. The ludus. Picture it with me, slowly, as if you are drifting into a dream already forming at the edges of your mind. It is just before dawn, in a city called Capua, a city of noise and heat even in its sleeping hours. But inside the stone walls of a gladiatorial school, the world is strangely quiet. The kind of quiet that sits heavy in your chest. The kind that knows something difficult is coming. The barracks are long and low. The walls are thick limestone, pale in the moonlight, still holding the warmth of the previous day's sun. There are cells small, yes, but not unkind. A wooden cot, a wool blanket, a clay bowl. These things, Caius has learned, are everything. A man who has nothing learns quickly what everything looks like. He is lying on his back. His eyes are open. He is 23 years old. He does not sleep the night before training days. Not because he is afraid. Fear is a feeling he catalogued and filed away a long time ago, the way you might put an old letter in a box and seal the lid. He does not sleep because the night is the only time that belongs to him. He listens. A dog somewhere beyond the walls, wandering in some alley of Capua. The soft breathing of the man in the cell beside his Brennus, a Gaul, enormous and gentle, who always falls asleep within moments of lying down and who Caius has privately envied for 3 years. The distant sound of the city's night watchmen, their sandaled feet on stone roads, their torches throwing orange light against the sky. The world goes on, out there. It goes on without asking anyone's permission. Caius finds this thought comforting, in the way that only very difficult truths can be comforting. He breathes slowly, in through the nose, out through the mouth. His chest rises, falls. The wool blanket is rough against his collarbone. He thinks of nothing particular. He simply is. The bell rings at first light. It is not a gentle sound. It is iron struck against iron, and it splits the quiet of the barracks like a blade through still water. Every man in the ludus knows that bell. Every man has a particular relationship with it. Some hate it with a passion that borders on worship. Some have made peace with it. Caius simply hears it, sets his feet on the cool stone floor, and begins. He washes his face from the basin in the corner of his cell. The water is cold. It always is. He does not flinch from it. Cold water in the morning is one of those small, honest things he has come to appreciate. It wakes the body without cruelty. It reminds you that you are alive and that the day is beginning and that there is work to be done. He pulls on his tunic, wraps the leather guards around his forearms, ties the cord at his left wrist twice. He always ties it twice, has done so since his first week here, a habit so old now it has become ritual. He steps out into the courtyard. The training ground of the ludus opens before him like a world unto itself. A wide square of pale sand, raked smooth before dawn by the younger boys who work the school. Stone archways on 3 sides, through which the other men are already filtering big men, scarred men, men of half a dozen nations who have arrived here by half a dozen roads, none of them chosen. In the center of the sand, the wooden posts stand. The palace, taller than a man, thick as a young tree, worn smooth in places where 10,000 practice strikes have polished the grain. The morning sky above the open courtyard is not yet fully blue. It is that deep, soft color between night and day, the color of still water, the color of held breath. A few stars remain, stubborn and faint, reluctant to give way. Caius rolls his shoulders, tilts his neck, slowly, to the left, to the right. He breathes the morning air, and it tastes of dust and bread from the kitchens and something green and distant that might be the fields beyond the city walls. He takes his position at the nearest post, and he begins. There is a rhythm to training that Caius knows the way he knows his own heartbeat. The first hour is always the body's complaint. The muscles are stiff. The joints protest. The mind, still half dreaming, drags its feet like a reluctant child being pulled towards something it does not yet want. This is normal. This is expected. You do not argue with the first hour. You simply pass through it. He strikes the palace with his wooden practice, sword the rudies slowly at first, learning again, as he does every morning, where his arm ends and the weapon begins, finding the line between them. The wood connects with the post, and he feels the impact travel up through his wrist, his forearm, his elbow, settling somewhere in the deep muscle of his shoulder. Again, again. The strikes come a little faster now, a little more sure. His feet begin to move the small, precise steps his Lannister drilled into him 3 years ago, steps that have since become as natural as walking. Left foot forward. Weight through the balls of the feet. Never flat-footed. Never caught standing still. Around him, the courtyard fills with sound. The rhythm of a dozen wooden blades against a dozen wooden posts. Grunts of exertion. The low instruction of the trainers, moving between the men like slow rivers, watching, correcting, occasionally praising with the terseness of men for whom praise is a coin spent carefully. This is the ludus. This is home. Caius does not use that word lightly. He used to resist at the idea that this place, with its locked gates and stone walls and iron bell and the permanent ache in his sword arm, could be anything as warm as home. It felt like a defeat to call it so, like agreeing with the Romans who brought him here in chains that this was where he belonged. But 3 years is a way of settling into the bones. And Caius is a practical man. He cannot change the walls. He cannot change the gate. He can change how he meets each morning, and he has chosen to meet them with his eyes open, his feet moving, his mind quiet. It is enough. For now, it is enough. The sun has cleared the eastern archway by the time the Lannister calls them together. His name is Marcus Falco, and he is not a cruel man, which is the most that can be said of him, and is in fact more than can be said of most in his profession. He is a former soldier, thick through the chest, with a gray beard and the particular stillness of someone who has spent decades watching men and judging what they are made of. He misses nothing. This both irritates and reassures the men under his charge. "Pairs today," he says, simply, and the courtyard rearranges itself like water finding a new shape. Caius is paired with a man named Daniel, a Carthaginian, quiet and watchful, who fights with an economy of movement that Caius has always respected. They do not speak much, he and Daniel. They do not need to. 3 years of sparring builds its own language, a language of footwork and breath and the angle of a shoulder. Daniel raises his shield. Caius raises his blade. There is something I want you to notice, as you lie there in the soft dark. Notice how your breath has slowed. Notice how the weight of the day has begun to release itself, slowly, from your shoulders, your jaw, the space behind your eyes. You are here, and you are safe, and you have nothing to do right now except listen. That is how Caius learned to feel about the sparring. In the early days, his mind was chaos. During training, his thoughts jumping and tangling, distracted by fear and grief and anger and the particular ache of missing a life he could barely remember. He would overcommit to strikes. He would let his guard drop at the wrong moment. He would push too hard when patience was what was needed. Then slowly, the way all real things change, he learned to go quiet inside, to exist only here, only now, only in the space between himself and the man across from him. He and Daniel circle each other in the sand. The morning sun is warm on the back of his neck. Sweat begins at his temples. His feet move without his instructing them. He watches Daniel's eyes. Not his weapon, his eyes. The eyes always tell the truth a moment before the body does. Daniel feints left. Caius does not move. Daniel tries again, a real strike this time, low and quick, testing his defenses the way you might test the thickness of ice on a winter pond. Caius turns at his side, shifts his weight, answers with 2 measured strikes of his own, nothing reckless, nothing wasteful. The impact of wood on wood is crisp and clean in the morning air. Falco, passing behind them, makes a small sound of approval. Caius keeps moving. By midday, the sun is fierce. The men rest in the shade of the archways, drinking water from clay cups, their breath heavy, their bodies gleaming. Caius sits with his back against the cool stone, his legs extended, his eyes half closed. Brennus drops down beside him with the unself-conscious weight of a falling tree. "You were slow this morning," Brennus says, in the accented Latin they all share now, this patchwork tongue that belongs to no single country and all of them at once. "I was patient," Caius replies. Brennus considers this. "Is there a difference?" Caius almost smiles. "Ask me again tomorrow." They sit in comfortable silence. A gecko moves along the top of the wall above them, impossibly sure of itself. Somewhere in the city beyond, a cart wheels over cobblestones, and voices call back and forth in the way of merchants and their customers in the ordinary traffic of the living world. Caius drinks his water slowly. He lets the warmth of the stone soak into his back. He breathes. "This is where we will rest for tonight." Let Caius rest too, in the shade of that archway, in the golden light of a Capuan afternoon, with the gecko on the wall and Brennus breathing slowly beside him and the wooden sword lying quiet in the sand. Tomorrow night, we will follow him deeper into the weeks before his first arena, into the thing that is coming, that all of them know is coming, that none of them speak of directly. But that is tomorrow. For now, there is only the warmth, only the breath, only the slow, certain dark behind your eyes. Let it come. Let it come. It is 3 weeks before his first arena fight, though he does not know this yet. The knowing comes from Falco, who delivers such information the way a physician delivers a difficult diagnosis directly, without ceremony, in the full belief that a man is better served by the truth than by the comfort of not knowing. He calls Caius to the far side of the courtyard, away from the others, one evening after the day's training has ended. The sky is going pink and amber above the archways. Somewhere in the city, someone is cooking meat over an open fire, and the smell of it drifts over the wall and reminds every man in the ludus that the world beyond is full of ordinary pleasures. Falco says, "You fight in the arena at Capua on the calends of the next month." Caius says nothing. Falco looks at him, that long, measuring look he has, the one that takes inventory. "You are ready," he says, and it is not a comfort exactly, but it is something. It is a professional judgment from a man who does not offer them lightly. "Who?" Caius asks. He means, who will he fight? "A man called Vero the Wolf," Falco says, and then pauses, something shifting behind his eyes. "That is what they will call you in the arena. The name I have given you." Caius considers this for a moment. Varro, the wolf. He turns the name over in his mind the way you might turn a stone found on a road, examining it for what it is. He is not sure it fits. He has never thought of himself as particularly wolf-like. But he understands that the name is not really for him. It is for the crowd. It is a story they can follow, a shape they can cheer for. And my opponent, he asks. A Samnite. Experienced. Not reckless. Falco pauses. You can beat him. Caius nods. Once. He walks back across the courtyard to where Brennus is sitting on an overturned bucket, methodically working oil into a leather strap, and he sits beside his friend, and he says nothing at all for a long while. The sky finishes its turning from pink to purple to the deep, soft blue of early night. The stars appear. There is a particular quality to the weeks before something inevitable. Time moves strangely. Some days seem to last as long as a season, each hour full of texture, each sensation arriving with unusual clarity, as though the body knows it should be paying attention and turns its instruments up accordingly. Other days vanish entirely, slipping past like water through open hands, and you find yourself at the evening bell wondering where the light went. Caius notices the smell of the sand more. He notices the way the light in the barracks falls differently in the morning than the afternoon, warmer in the morning, that new gold color, and whiter and flatter by midday. He notices the particular sound his own footsteps make on the stone corridor between his cell and the courtyard, a sound he must have heard 10,000 times and never registered as something worth keeping. He is keeping it now. He keeps all of it, pressing these small sensory things into his memory the way you press a flower between the pages of a book. Not out of fear, or not only out of fear, but out of something older and more animal. A need to mock the world, to say, I was here, I noticed this, this was real. Brennus finds out about the arena fight the same evening Caius does his own announcement delivered by Falco with the same directness, the same economical confidence. They are to fight on the same day, in adjacent bouts. They do not speak of this for 2 full days. On the 3rd day, they are sitting together after the midday rest, their backs against the warm courtyard wall, and Brennus says, without looking at him, Are you frightened? Caius considers lying. It would be easy. He has become reasonably good at the kind of lying that is not quite lying, the silence that allows other people to assume you are fine, the slight adjustment of expression that communicates steadiness. It is a useful skill in the ludus, where men watch each other for weakness the way cats watch for movement in the grass. But this is Brennus. Yes, Caius says. Brennus nods slowly, still looking at the middle distance. Good, he says finally. Frightened men are careful men. And you? Caius asks. A long pause. The gecko or gecko, perhaps a descendant of that earlier one, it is impossible to know, moves along the top of the wall above them. I am frightened of the sound, Brennus says quietly. The crowd. I have heard men describe it. I cannot. I cannot make it small in my mind. Every time I try to imagine it, it becomes larger. Caius thinks about this. He has heard the descriptions 2 men who have fought before, talking in low voices in the evenings about the noise of the arena, a noise that is not quite like any other noise in the world. Not just loud, they say. Something beyond loud. Something that enters the body and takes up residence. Think of it as wind, Caius says. Wind is also very loud. Wind does not care about you personally. It just blows. Brennus looks at him. His large face is unreadable for a moment, and then something in it softens, and he lets out a breath that is not quite a laugh but is not quite not a laugh either. Wind, he repeats. Wind, Caius confirms. Let your own breath be easy now. Feel how the air moves into your lungs and then releases, unhurried, without your having to think about it. Your body does this all night long, even in the deepest sleep. It knows what it is doing. It has been doing it your whole life. Just like Caius, learning to trust the thing inside him that knows how to endure. The training intensifies in those final weeks, as it always does before scheduled bout. Falco pushes harder, watches more closely, finds the small gaps and errors in a man's practice and works at them with the patient persistence of a craftsman finishing something that must be right. For Caius, the gap is always the same. He is patient to the point of passivity. He can defend beautifully. He can read an opponent. He can wait. But there are moments, particular moments, when the opening finally appears where he hesitates. A fraction of a second. The sort of hesitation that in practice means nothing. In the arena, it could mean everything. Falco drills him on this relentlessly. The decision is already made. He tells him again and again, standing behind him while Caius works the palace. By the time you see the opening, the strike should already be happening. There is no gap between the seeing and the doing. You understand. Caius understands. Understanding and doing are different countries, and the road between them is made of repetition, but he understands. He strikes the post. Again. Again. The sound of wood on wood fills the courtyard like a heartbeat. There are nights, in those final weeks, when Caius does not even attempt sleep. He sits on the edge of his cot, or he lies on his back and stares at the ceiling, and he lets his mind go where it wishes, which is perhaps the one freedom left entirely to him. Sometimes it goes back to Thrace, to the mountains. They were not grand mountains, the ones of his childhood, not the vast white peaks you see painted on Roman walls, not the mountains of legend. They were old mountains, gentle-shouldered, covered in pine and rough grass, with cold streams that ran gray-blue in the mornings and smelled of stone. His father kept sheep on those slopes. Caius used to follow him, small enough that the grass came up to his chest in places, learning the particular patience of a boy who has nothing to do but walk and watch and be. He has been drawing on that patience ever since. He thinks about his father without grief now, which took a long time to arrive at, and which he is careful not to take for granted. The grief is still there, somewhere, but it has become a stone he has carried long enough that it no longer feels heavy. It is simply part of him now, part of the weight he walks with. He breathes in the night air of his cell. He breathes it out. On the eve of the fight, Falco does something unexpected. He comes to the barracks in the last hour before the lamps are extinguished, and he moves from cell to cell, the cells of every man scheduled to fight the following day, and he does not say much. He looks at each of them. He nods. He places one hand briefly on each man's shoulder. That is all. It should not mean as much as it does. But in the way of small gestures in difficult times, it means a great deal. When Falco reaches Caius's cell, he stands for a moment in the doorway, the lamplight behind him, and he looks at his fighter with that old measuring gaze, and Caius looks back. Neither of them is the kind of man who fills silences unnecessarily. Tomorrow, Falco says. Tomorrow, Caius agrees. The hand on his shoulder. Firm, brief, real. And then Falco moves on, and the lamp down the corridor sways in the draught from the closing door, and Caius is alone again in the quiet of his cell. He lies down. He places his hands flat on his chest and feels his own heartbeat steady, unhurried, reliable as a tide. He breathes. Tomorrow, he thinks, and then he decides, with the particular discipline of a man who has learned to govern his inner life, not tonight. Tonight belongs to rest. And slowly, in the warm dark of the Ludus, with the city of Capua murmuring its night sounds beyond the walls, with Brennus breathing in the next cell and the stars turning slowly above the open courtyard, Caius Vero the wolf closes his eyes and rests. The morning of the fight arrives the way all significant mornings do, not with fanfare, not with any outward sign that today is different from any other day, but with the same pale light at the same small window, the same iron bell, the same cold water in the basin. Caius washes his face. He ties the cord at his left wrist. Twice. He breathes. The preparations take longer than a normal training day. There are attendant slaves of the ludus, young and efficient, who help the fighters into their proper equipment with the quiet focus of men doing skilled work. For Caius, this means the heavier leather arm guard that goes to the shoulder, the broad belt of stiffened linen at his waist, the greave on his left leg, bronze and well-fitted, shaped to the curve of his shin with a precision that still faintly amazes him. He will fight as a Thrax today, a Thracian fighter which Falco chose, he suspects, partly for the symmetry of it. A Thracian boy, fighting in the Thracian style. There is something in that which Caius is still deciding how to feel about. Whether it is an acknowledgement of who he is, or simply a commercial decision. Perhaps, he thinks, it is both. Perhaps most things are. His weapon is the curved sikar, a short, hook-bladed sword, unusual in its shape, designed for getting around an opponent's guard. He has trained with it for 3 years. It fits his hand the way a word fits its meaning. He holds it now, in the corridor beneath the arena, and he breathes. The corridor is stone, low-ceilinged, lit by oil lamps set into the walls at intervals, their flames very still in the airless underground. The smell is particular stone and oil and iron, and the faint, animal smell of many men gathered in a closed space, and beneath all of it, something else. Something that has soaked into these walls over many years of men standing exactly here, feeling exactly this. Caius stands with his back against the cool stone. Beside him, Brennus stands too, massive and quiet, his eyes closed, his lips moving slightly, speaking something in his own Gaulish tongue, a prayer, perhaps, or a memory, or simply the sound of his own language held in his mouth like something precious. From above them, through the stone and earth, the crowd, even here, even underground, even through all that weight of rock and soil, the crowd. It is not a sound so much as a presence, a vibration that lives in the chest more than the ears, a collective human breathing that has grown into something beyond human, something vast and impersonal and restless. Brennus had been right to fear it. No description had done it justice. Caius thinks, wind. He holds the thought carefully. Wind does not care about you personally. It just blows. His heartbeat is very clear to him. Steady. A little fast. Present. He breathes into it. And it slows, and he breathes into it again. There is a man down the corridor, a veteran fighter named Sextus, who has been in the arena 11 times. Who wears his scars with the comfortable familiarity of old clothes. He is leaning against the wall, arms folded, eyes open, looking at nothing in particular. Caius watches him for a moment. There is something in Sextus's stillness that is instructive. Not calm, exactly. Not the absence of feeling. More like, the feeling has been given its place and its proportion, and the rest of the man continues to function around it. That, Caius thinks, is what experience looks like. He would like to have that one day. He intends to have it. The gate at the end of the corridor is wood reinforced with iron bars, and beyond it, a second gate, and beyond that, the light. Even from here, the light is visible, a bright, golden, living thing, pressing through the gaps in the outer gate with the eagerness of something that has never been underground and has no patience for it. It shifts and moves. It is the light of a full arena in the full morning sun, and it is nothing like the flat lamplight of the corridor, nothing like any light Caius has stood in before. It calls to something in him, or perhaps it does not call so much as simply exist, and his eyes, starved of daylight by the underground passage, Move toward it the way all eyes move toward light. He moves toward the gate. And then the gate is open. And then he is walking. And then the light takes him. I want you to feel this with him, slowly, because this is the moment the story has been moving toward since the first night, since the cold water in the basin and the cod tied twice at the wrist and the gecko on the courtyard wall. The sand is pale and deep and very clean in the morning light. It has been raked. It catches the sun and holds it, so that the floor of the arena seems almost to glow from within, golden white, warm beneath his sandaled feet in a way the stone corridor was not. The walls of the arena rise around him tier upon tier faces, a geometry of humanity stacked into the sky, and above that, the sky itself, brilliant and blue and enormous, more sky than he ever seems to see from inside the ludus walls. And the sound, it arrives all at once as he clears the gate, as his figure becomes visible to the crowd. And it is what Brennus said it would be, what no description had managed. It is enormous and shapeless and continuous and alive, and it enters his body through his sternum and his ease and the soles of his feet and the top of his skull all at once, simultaneously. A pressure that is not quite painful but that occupies all the space a pain would occupy. The crowd, the roar, the wind. He walks forward into it. He does not stop. His feet know what to do. The sand. Focus on the sand, he tells himself, and so he does. He looks down at the pale surface beneath his feet, marked now with the prints of his own sandals, small and clear and utterly real. He breathes the arena air, which is warm and smells of dust and heat and the particular mineral smell of large stone in direct sunlight. He finds the center of the arena, and he stops. He looks up, and he allows himself just once, just for a moment to truly see it. All of it. The faces, beyond counting, above and around and everywhere, a whole world of them. The banners in the morning wind. The white stone catching the light. The sky so blue it seems impossible. The blue of something that has never been told it cannot be that color. He allows himself to see it. And then he breathes. And then he finds, somewhere very deep inside himself, below the heartbeat and the sensation and the sound below all of it, that same quiet place he has been building for 3 years, one morning at a time, with cold water and a tight cord and the steady rhythm of practice and the particular patience of a boy who once walked on cold Thracian mountains and had nowhere to be but there. He finds it. He goes there. And he is ready. His opponent arrives from the gate on the far side of the arena. A Samnite Falco had said, experienced, not reckless. And so he is, visibly, as he crosses the sand. A tall man, older than Caius by perhaps 10 years, with the deliberate walk of someone who has done this before and found that hurrying helps nothing. He carries his rectangular shield at a slight outward angle, which tells Caius something. His feet are turned out at the toe, which tells him something else. They approach one another across the bright sand. They stop at the required distance. The presiding magistrate speaks from his box above the arena ritual words in formal Latin, the ancient language of ceremony and law, and the crowd shifts into a different quality of noise, a held breath that is not quite silence. Caius looks at his opponent across the narrow air between them. His opponent looks back. There is, in this moment, something almost peaceful between them, something honest. 2 men, in the full sun, with nothing between them and the truth of the next few minutes. No ceremony, no performance, only this. The signal is given. The fight is not what he expected. He had imagined in the anxious nighttime wanderings of the weeks before that it would feel enormous, dramatic, that his thoughts would come loud and fast and chaotic. Instead, there's almost nothing. His mind empties the way a room empties when the last lamp is extinguished. And in the emptiness, there is only movement. The Samnite is good. Falco was right. He is patient, measured, experienced. He does not overcommit, does not lunge where a strike is not certain. He works the edge of Caius's reach, testing, probing. He is reading Caius the way Caius reads opponents, and the recognition of this would be almost amusing if there were any part of Caius's mind free to be amused. There is not. There is only the movement, the breath, the sand beneath his feet, slightly giving, gripping at each step. They exchange and withdraw, exchange and withdraw. The sound of blade on shield is different from wood on wood, sharper, more immediate, a sound that rings rather than thuds. Caius's arm registers each impact and releases it, registers and releases, the way a river accepts a stone thrown into it and closes back over the disturbance and moves on. He watches the Samnite's eyes. He waits. The opening, when it comes, is small. It is always small. All real things are small before they are large. A hairline crack in stone before the stone splits. A single step that changes a direction entirely. The Samnite shifts his weight back, foot lifting, then settling in the particular way of a man setting up for a heavy, committed strike. It is a choice made a fraction of a second before the body executes it, and Caius sees it in the eyes before he sees it anywhere else. The decision is already made. Falco's voice says, somewhere very far away. By the time you see the opening, the strike should already be happening. There is no gap between the seeing and the doing. Caius moves. The Sika turns the incoming strike wide. His footwork closes the distance in 2 steps. He strikes, controlled, precise, the flat of the blade catching the Samnite across the upper arm with enough force to unsettle the grip on the sword. The sword falls. The Samnite takes 1 step back, then stills. He looks at Caius. He does not look afraid. He looks, if anything, like a craftsman who has just watched a colleague perform a piece of work and found it competent. He raises 1 hand, palm out, in the ancient gesture of submission. The crowd makes it sound again, that enormous, shapeless, wind-like sound. Caius stands in the center of it and breathes. He does not remember walking back off the sand. He remembers the gate, the corridor, the lamplight, very yellow after the fierce white of the arena sun. He remembers the stone wall against his back, cool, solid, indifferent to everything, comforting in its total indifference. He remembers Brennus, who is already back from his own bout of fact that tells Caius it ended quickly, though he does not know yet how. Brennus is sitting on the floor of the corridor, his arms on his knees, his head back against the stone, his eyes open. There is a cut above his left eyebrow, not deep, already clotting in the dry underground air. He looks up when Caius appears. He looks at him for a long moment, that measuring, wordless communication of men who have trained together for years. Then Brennus says, very quietly, "The wind." Caius slides down the wall to sit beside him on the cold stone floor. "The wind," he agrees. And there, in the lamplight corridor beneath the arena, with the muffled roar of the crowd still pressing down through the stone above them like distant weather, and the smell of iron and oil and the particular underground dark all around them, the 2 men sit together in the comfortable silence of people who have passed through something and arrived, still breathing, on the other side. That night, back in the ludus, Caius lies on his cot. The wool blanket is rough at his collarbone. The sounds of the city come over the wall, as they always do, the night watchman, the dog, the distant traffic of a world that continues without asking anyone's permission. His body aches in the specific, honest way of a body that has worked hard and performed well and is now asking for rest. It is not an unpleasant ache. It is an ache that means something. He thinks about the sand. He thinks about the sky, that impossible blue, that enormous sky above the arena that seemed to go on forever. He thinks about his father on the mountain, moving slowly through the high grass with the sheep around him, unhurried, going nowhere in particular, simply present in the world. He breathes. And for the first time in 3 weeks, sleep comes for him the way it comes for Brennus, easily, without ceremony, like a tide coming in. And Caius Verus, son of a shepherd, taken from his mountains, trained on pale sand, given a wolf's name by a city that did not know his real one, Caius closes his eyes, and rests, and is still. So are you, still, breathing, warm in the dark. The story is finished now, and it has brought you here to this quiet, to this softness, to the place just before sleep where the body is heavy, and the mind lets go of the things it has been holding all day. Let them go. You have carried them long enough for today. Like Caius, you have passed through the noise and the light and the waiting, and you have arrived, still breathing, on the other side. That is enough. That is everything. Rest now. This concludes the story. Sleep well. Good night.